just a lot of things happened. First of all, it became clear to us that we couldn't take care of Eric properly in the place where we were living in Cambridge. And there was a great big house, and just the two of us often, which didn't help, that you can't handle that as a single person. And so we decided that he would have to be in a place where he had more regular care, and that would be a place to look for. So Kai, my oldest son, and I traveled all around the edges of Cambridge looking for possible places, and it wasn't easy to find one because they all seemed so very big, like great big hotels out in the country. And that didn't seem to be the right place for him at all. I knew that we would demand special privileges for him wherever he was, and it's very hard to have special privileges in a big establishment like that. It's much better to look for a small one because they're more flexible. So finally we got all the way around the edge of Cambridge and all the way to the Cape, and there we found one that was small enough to house him and do what was necessary, and yet to be very flexible. And it was nice because they didn't mind how much I stayed there. And what I looked for was a house then, or housing, around that place. It's called Rosewood Manor. And found a place to be where they had an apartment for rent that I could have. But it was all for older people. And that worked out pretty well for me until I couldn't stand it any longer because they were more than old. They were very old, and all they did was to listen to television and have meals 3 times a day, and that was about it. They were very immobile, these people. Anyway, it was too tight a hole for me, so I decided to find something else and moved into a house very close by, so I wouldn't have to move very far, just a few bundles, and I could move over into this little house, which I did. And I've been living there ever since. But I was right within walking distance of the place where he was. And so that made it practical and pleasant and useful for both of us. And that lasted for about 5-6 months until I could get into this house that I had selected, bought it, got it fixed up the way I wanted it. And I've been there ever since. It's a nice little place. It's nice out-of-door spaces, big trees and all around, and back porch that goes the whole way. I find it very comfortable, and from there I can walk anywhere in the village and get the things that I've done that I want to do. And I like to sing in the choir in the church, so I got in on that, got going on it. It's a nice place, very friendly people, very careful of everyone around them. They're all taken care of. Nice town, nice place to be. I insisted upon being alone with Eric to the last minute. And I said, and don't you dare come in the room, anybody. I want to be alone here, and I want no interruption from anybody. I was there all night. And in the morning, I knew he had died, but I had been there all the way through it. And when they finally came to in the morning and were wanting to come in the room, I let them come in. I had to because the doctor was there to, he has to be there to proclaim that he is really dead. So nobody goes out not dead. That would have been a good idea. And then after that, they say to me, now the men are coming and you must leave, you know. And so I left the room and waited elsewhere. And all of a sudden, everything was gone. And they had put his body in whatever contraption they had come with, but all they do is wrap him up in something and take him out. And I was just furious. You know, it seems to me, I don't know, if you look at all of the countries of the world, they've had some method, some way of saying goodbye. Even the animals have it. You know? Do you know any of those stories? There are wonderful stories about animals who go back and cherish the body until, or the whatever, tusks, if it's animals with tusks. They go back and lift them and hold them again and then put them down again, and as if they were saying, yes, this is where he was, this is how he was, and so on. And what they do to us human beings is just awful, you know, because there's no, there may be a burial service, but nowadays nobody does it anymore. You can't have a coffin because it takes up too much space in the graveyard. You know, you have to have cremation, and so this body goes off and way off into the wilds somewhere where nobody is, and that's where you have your crematorium there, because it doesn't disturb anybody, any population. Nobody is disturbed by it because it's way off there. Nobody knows where it is. And when they get through with that, weeks later, they come with this little box and they say, here it is. Here are the ashes. And you don't know whose ashes you've got. Not that it matters at that point. What kind of you are asked what kind of a box you would like. Would you like a wooden box? Would you like a tin box? Would you like paper box? I say, give me a paper box. It dissolves. You could at least have a paper box. And but that's the only choice you get. I certainly would have the family around. I certainly would let people be in on this. I certainly would take them in afterwards. I certainly would. There would be a moment of everybody saying goodbye. You know, it's just absolutely. It's like our business and everything else we do in this country. You know, all countries. You do so much of it on the side that isn't part of you. It's inhuman. It's like treating any kind of material in the place. I would go out in a boat. I would go out in a boat somewhere. I'd rather that it be in the water and with other people around, that we all do it together, the family. What happens now is that we're getting to have more and more old people, and we know less and less about what to do for them and with them and so on. For instance, our cities are absolutely not built for old people. There is no place that's safe to walk in a city anymore. I mean, maybe you might find a park that would be safe, but ordinarily the streets themselves are not meant for aged people. You can't cross the street safely, you know. You don't go as fast as the lights. And the first thing you know, you're still out there when the lights change, and you have to practically run to the other side to get over there. And it's not the tempo at which you would normally walk. So I feel that the cities have not changed along with the population that they house, supposedly. And so what we have done, and I talk about that a little bit in that manuscript that you have, is we've sent them out. We've told them, get out of the city, move out in the city, get out of this world, and go into a world of your own that you make out in the country somewhere. And there you have great big buildings that look like hotels, and all the people that take care of the ones that are in the hotel have to come back and forward to the city, which makes everything that happens there much more costly, for one thing, time-taking. And then what do they do with their cars when they get there? They're parked all the way around these gorgeous hotels, and there's nowhere to walk. So there you are, making another prison-like thing, and making it look very great and very splendid. And inside it's wonderful. Outside it's just as well. The land is lovely. It's beautiful areas they've chosen, but they've ruined them with all the cars that come and go and make a whole fence around the the compost. So I was just questioning the validity of this. Is that a community? No, it's only a place for people who can afford it go, and the rest of the world makes do as well as it can in the city where everybody lands. It's very strange that we should do that, just put them out. If they don't fit in what we've built, then we'll put them somewhere else where they can be safer. But you can't do that unless you can afford it in a big way. It costs a lot to keep that thing going back and forward to the city. If I were in charge, I'd start a new city. And in that new city, I'd have parks, lots of parks, and good ones, so that the business end isn't encroaching all the time. And in the middle of the park, there'd be a house, a big one maybe, and all the old people could live there. Then they could walk out of their house into the park and walk around, meet friends in the park, be in the park with people from the outside who would be glad to come and see them. And maybe we could learn a little bit from the older people what old age is all about if we conversed with them that way and were intimate with them in that way. There's no way we can be intimate with those people out in those hotels. They aren't going to tell you a thing. But in this, that's right. There's going to be no conversation. And that struck me as being the only way we could logically take care of city and the needs of older people. And I doubt if we'll do it, but it's a nice thought, magic kind of thought. When you have a problem and you want to have help with it, you consult somebody and put the problem into the hands of the people that are going to help you out. And that's a very nice idea. And that really is the idea of what a nursing home, a health home is about. You're in the hands of, very literally, the people that take care of you. Because it's the hands that make all the difference. The hands that take care of you, keep you clean, keep your place clean, take care of you in a very general way. But also, they're the hands that communicate with you all the time. Our words are very, very poor most of the time. And it is through your hands that you signify and you can make contact with people and express your feeling with them and they with you if it's allowed and if it happens. But we use our hands in, we learned a little bit in hospitals how you treat people. You use your hand, but it's all in the caretaking kind of way. It's not communicating in the way it has to be in these retirement homes, or otherwise you are impoverished by this. You don't have anybody to talk to because you don't necessarily want to converse, but you just want to put your hands on it. Pat somebody, soothe somebody, make a connection. And we use our hands all the time, and it's very important that people should respect those hands and use them well. And we don't teach that necessarily in the process of sharing with others how older people should be treated. They could learn from one another. The nurses could learn from one another,
Tell us.
Well, if you're teaching these nurses, you'd say, well, here's somebody, and you could act it out. It could be a play in a way. Act out somebody who's just come in and is nervous and so on. What do you do with this person? Well, you speak to them, but you don't necessarily, oh, Mrs. So-and-so, isn't it nice that you're here? But somebody who comes in and says, couldn't I help you carry that? And wouldn't it be better if I did this for you? Would you like that? And, there's just a different way of talking to somebody that you think is full of feeling and somebody you think is going to do this. So it's tricky. And it would be hard to teach verbally. You'd have to do it with action and not with language. Although you would probably need the language, some kind of language in between that you would probably make up as you go if you got to know somebody well.
So are we back to tactful?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, I think that you need to not make people really expect always the same person to come. I mean, they're going to have a variety of characters taking care of them. And I think that it's very important for the nurse at every point to introduce herself, you know. You remember I did this for you yesterday, and now from now on I'm probably going to be doing this for you today, and if I don't, it'll be somebody else who will do this in the same kind of way. I mean, I think sometimes I've experienced it in the hospital of just somebody brand new comes barging in and she doesn't tell you who she is or what she is or why she is, and it's like going into anybody else's home, you know. You have to introduce yourself. They don't do that very much, and they don't make for contact by saying, you can call me this or you can call me that, and everything's all right and so on. I think you have to just take it step by step, very slowly, to make the contact, and that's the way you become tactful. Well, that's what I call. What happens then is you have a kind of a battle between taking part in where you are and withdrawal. There is a way that a lot of patients deliberately withdraw. They don't really like what's going on. They don't really like where they are, and what the decision seems to be in their minds. I'll just pull away from this. I will be not rude and not unkind, but I will not partake in what they're all doing. Participate in many of the games. You know, they play games all the time in these places. It's not that they don't want to be. I don't think they even want to be unfriendly, but they just feel like saying, this is too much for me. I can't put up with all of this that's going on around me, so I will protect myself by making a fence around myself and being just me. And they're very hard to treat, very hard to take care of, particularly hard for the nurses who are trying to win the game and trying to help you. There are those who elect it because they feel maybe out of sorts with the way things are being done, or the fact that they're there. They may be angry, maybe inside. I don't know what they are, but they pull back and are something else than the others present. But there's another group which are there because their bodies have given out on them, and they can't see and they can't hear, and they have pain and they're discouraged in every way, and they withdraw because they can't help it. I mean, it's just a physical imposition, and they have no choice. And I think that is what you have to cope with then. The ones that are the ones that want to withdraw, you have to allow to do that, and nobody can stop them. There's no way you can force them to do otherwise. But you can make passes now and then, see if you can get through and if you can be heard in any particular way. But the other way, you have no choice either. All you can do is just treat them as tenderly as you can, as well as you can, and as delicately with your hands as you can make it. And there's nothing else to do but just take care of them. Well, there is now. Well, that's the stage when you shift, when you see things from the other point of view, where if you say, if you have the chart in front of you, which I hope you do, when you have the chart in front of you, you'll always see the syntonic mentioned first, and then the dystonic. But when you get to be 90 and you're in that stage, you think, well, jolly well, that the dystonic takes the major picture, and then you have to be supported by the syntonic, which is over here. So you've just shifted the whole thing around and looked at it from the point of view of the dystonic mostly. It's very amazing when you get to be older and you realize that certain things you can't do anymore or don't do well or you do rather raggedly, that you can't trust this leg or that leg or whatever it is that's bothering you, and you have to withdraw the trust, but kind of forgive the element that has proven not stable and go along with it just the same. You trust the rest of you that's left. But it's there. I mean, you do have to face the fact that lots of things that were trustworthy in you go by the board. Of course, early on, you just think that you're going to have it your way, and you go after it full speed and all forces geared, and you just very often come out all right, but you have to buck a lot of things, but you feel very sure that you can. And as you get older, you find that you have less and less energy for this, and you buck people that you love and that you don't want to offend, so you're against them as well as yourself. You've got a double problem there, because you don't want to offend them, and you understand what they're trying to do, and therefore you appreciate it and respect it. But just the same, you're feisty, and you make it as much yours as you possibly can, if you can get away with it.
But in the bucking, sometimes you end up feeling shame?
Well, you feel as if you overdid it. You didn't have to be quite that stiff and predisposed and anxious to have it done your way, because you don't like it in other people either. And so but you feel left out because you can't handle it both ways carefully and cautiously the way you could once. When you get too much initiative, you certainly, if you are unsuccessful with your initiative, then you feel guilty. You've upset people, you've upset a situation because you insisted upon doing it your way, and then you feel guilty, but in a very uncomfortable way, because you really made people do things the way you wanted it when you shouldn't have. That was thoughtless and unkind. I do that kind of thing all the time. Very often you have a project that you've been on your mind, something you'd like to do, and it's upset a lot of other people in the process. You've insisted upon doing it because you were feeling very strong, and then it turns out to be not a good idea. You were wrong. And then you really feel guilty because you've upset people and you've insisted upon doing something. And it isn't just shame because you didn't have the physical capacity, but you never should have made this choice. And then you feel guilty. Are you competent in the way you do things? I mean, have you got the physical ability to do things? Or haven't you? Or do you overestimate your physical capacity, and so on? And if you think it's a good idea to hop, skip, and jump across the street, that's not a good idea. You're 90. It might have been very cute. It has to do with what happens to you when you still think you're in charge of yourself, and other people are taking care of you, and they take a great deal of have a great deal of patience with you, but they still are taking care of you, and they want you to do a thing one way, and you want to do it another, and your role confusion is: do I give in to this person who is younger than I, because she might be smarter or he might be smarter, or do I go it my own way? And you have to think all the time, is it my role to do this, or is it my role to to support this person who's doing their role perfectly at that time, but it doesn't fit with me? And who are you anyway at that point? Somebody who has the right to speak up, or maybe that's just speaking up is often all that's necessary. Isolation is what comes first, and that's what you feel. And it seems much more important than intimacy at the point when you're there. If you are isolated, intimacy is just something you might yearn for, and it might be something you have great appreciation for, but it isn't you. It's so obvious that one way you just allow yourself to kind of fall apart and enjoy it as well as you can, and the other stance is to want to go on doing what you were doing and still produce and still write and still do things. And the question is always, how far do you go forcing this? How far do you go trying to go along with the stereotype of what you're supposed to be when you're an older lady? And I think I have that. Everybody says to me, well, don't bother. I mean, you don't have to work so hard at this. I said, how am I going to get finished if I don't work on it? And that's the only way to get it done. Some people, when they get old, seem to kind of squish in a little bit. Do you know what I mean? They get kind of rigid and old and not alive to what's going on around them. They kind of get indifferent, and then they want particular treatment this way and that way and the other way. And I think that is not having an indomitable core. That means that you're not ready for other things. You're giving in a kind of way, and you're solidifying what you have represented. Whereas I think that if you have a core that is functioning, you're always reaching out for something new. You're always interested in something new, but you needn't necessarily accept it. But you tolerate it, you look at it, you give it a chance, and if it fits in with the rest of your dispositions and your interests and so on, you take it on, and you give it a thought, and give it some time to reconsider and think about. So it's not as if you're stultified at that point, but rather that you feel very firm where you are and are willing to accept, but are also perfectly willing to say, no, that's not for me. And I think that's the way it should be at that point. And it just means, don't take away from me what I've got, and let me choose from there on what I want to accept or don't want to accept. Something like that.